Underground Ramsgate, 1863 to 1965. Slide 1. Ramsgate, on the east coast of Kent, is located approximately 14.5 miles northeast of Dover and is home to the only royal harbour in the country, which is notable for its wartime role as headquarters for the now famous little ships. Approximately 70 feet below the surface of the town, however, lies another more secret layer to its wartime history. A network of deep tunnel shelters dug in the dark days of 1939 as the nation and the world braced itself for a Second World War. There are in fact 3 sets of interconnecting tunnels, and it would be amiss not to provide a brief context on them all before focusing on the deep tunnel shelters. Slide 2. The earliest of the 3 tunnels dates back to 1863, running for 3/4 of a mile, and was built to provide access for the newly constructed Ramsgate Harbour Station. It was the second station to open in the town and was operated under licence by the London, Chatham and Dover Railway Company, helping to transform the town's fortunes from a Napoleonic embarkation port to a thriving holiday resort town. The station continued to operate successfully until 1923, when the Railway Act of 1921, also known as the Grouping Act, finally came into effect, which resulted in the Southern Railway Company taking over the operation of the line and the station. Upon review of the infrastructure, Southern Railway decided to close the harbour station and construct a new station inland, with another located at Dumpton Park between Ramsgate and Broadstairs, and they both opened in 1926. Following the closure of the harbour station and purchase by Ramsgate Corporation, it was leased to Thanet Amusements, who set about transforming the site into zoo, funfair and music hall. Merry England, as it became known, retained its popularity until it sailed to Ramsgate Olympia, who began a programme of improvements and expansion. To attract more visitors and to be able to provide a much-needed link to the seafront, they set about exploring the possibilities of constructing a light electric railway. The second tunnel, which spans 300 feet, connected the original Victorian tunnel to a new station. Work began on the tunnel and the railway in May 1935, and through a Herculean effort was opened at the end of July. Passengers were treated to a trip around the world through the use of models and illuminated tableaux of iconic sites. The service proved to be so popular that a reported 20,000 people used the service over the course of the following August bank holiday. Slide 3. Ramsgate's deep tunnel shelters, the last in our trio, owe their origins to the First World War, when Ramsgate was subjected to numerous bombardments from both air and sea. In all, 24 people were killed and a further 51 injured in the town, with photographs, newspaper articles and commemorative pamphlets being produced as permanent reminders of those tragic days' events. Slide 4. With the vulnerability of the nation to aerial bombardment proven, and with technology becoming ever more advanced, 1924 saw the Committee for Imperial Defence establish a subcommittee on air raid precautions, or ARP. During the build-up to hostilities in the 1930s, a further Home Office committee, the ARP Department, was established and made public in 1936, with full responsibility provided for preparing Britain's passive air defence measures. Ramsgate's own ARP subcommittee was also formed in 1936 and set about making its preparations. The committee quickly received a motion from Councillor Miss Wilson, stating it is the moral responsibility of this council to immediately provide suitable refuges from aerial attacks or sea bombardment on Ramsgate. However, advice from a 1935 Home Office circular stated the official position that the government cannot undertake to provide money towards the construction of public bomb-proof shelters, preferring instead a policy of dispersal, removing people from areas considered vulnerable to bombing. Ramsgate's ARP committee, however, took the view that the geological conditions in Ramsgate with regards to the provision of bomb-proof shelters were, in fact, exceptional. Slide 5. In 1937, Parliament passed the Air Raid Precautions Act, requiring local authorities to ready their respective areas in case of attack. Following Ramsgate's ARP committee's earlier deliberations, they had tasked the borough surveyor, Richard Brimmel, to start investigating the option of improving underground shelters used in the First World War and the possibility of constructing a larger-scale deep tunnel shelter. the plans for which were in turn submitted to the Home Office in June 1938, at an estimated cost of £80,000. In September they received a knockback, stating that the Secretary of State could not allow for a departure from the general lines of policy which he had laid down regarding air raid shelters. Brimmel, at the behest of the committee, then drew up a modified scheme which called for the construction of 3¼ miles of tunnels to be dug at an estimated cost of £64,000, which would offer protection for the entire population of the borough, with the committee feeling that every possible endeavour should be made to obtain approval for the modified scheme. To this end, on the 10th of February 1939, a deputation led by Ramsgate's tenacious Mayor A.B.C. Kemp went to London for a meeting at the Home Office. But following a heated and frank exchange, the deputation returned home, with no firm decision having yet been made. But in March, the corporation received word that everyone had been waiting for. They could proceed at once with the deep tunnel shelters. Work began immediately, with the first section opened by the Duke of Kent on the 1st of June 1939. In all, Ramsgate's new deep tunnel shelters could hold a maximum of 60,000 people, 30,000 residents, and a further 30,000 holidaymakers, who were told that Ramsgate was now the safest resort in the country. The tunnels were the largest purpose-built air raid shelter in the country when they were complete, and comparatively modern, with 250 Elsan chemical toilets, bunk beds, seating, electric lighting, and even a public address system having been installed. Slide 6. The first bombs to drop on the town fell in July 1940, bringing Ramsgate once more onto the front line. On the 24th of August, at the height of the Battle of Britain, following an aborted attack on Royal Air Force Manston, the returning Luftwaffe aircraft dropped an estimated 500 high-explosive bombs on the town, causing a sea of devastation 3 miles long and half a mile wide. Ramsgate was eventually subjected to 95 air raids during the Second World War, with approximately 860 high-explosive bombs dropped on the borough, destroying and damaging 811 buildings. Over the course of the war, 86 civilians were unfortunately to lose their lives, with a further 228 people recorded as injured. While 10 would be far too many, it is thanks in no small part to the efforts of Brimmel and Kemp, whose forethought and tenacity undoubtedly saved many more lives by the war's close in 1945. Slide 7. With the increasing amounts of Ramsgate's housing stock being damaged or destroyed, the corporation had little choice but to temporarily rehouse people within the main Victorian railway tunnel, at which point the government's concerns about people adopting a troglodyte existence began to come true. Initially, their concerns appeared to be well-founded, with living accommodation constructed with scraps of materials constructed from the bomb-damaged streets above, and with inhabitants sitting on deck chairs brought in from the beaches. There followed a damning report in December 1940. Following the report and complaints from residents themselves, the corporation made strenuous efforts to improve the facilities, dismantling the ramshackle collection of cubicles and providing purpose-built ones with fire-retardant hessian to cover them. They also installed a small medical station complete with visiting health workers and staffing by the St John's Ambulance, with an additional quarantine area available at the far end of the main tunnel. A small canteen, further chemical toilets and washing facilities were all installed by early 1941. Entertainment and activities were also laid on, including bi-weekly concerts and Christmas and Easter parties provided for the remaining children. At the height of the Second World War, approximately 1,500 people were recorded as living in the tunnels. Slide 8. Despite a brief stint as a tourist attraction during the late 1940s, the deep tunnel shelters were subsequently fenced off, restricting access. The light electric railway was reopened for the summer season of 1946, with the illuminated tableau and models removed, being replaced with characters from fairy tales. But due to changing holiday habits and an increase in social mobility, post-war Ramsgate lost its attraction as a holiday destination, and in 1965, with declining profits, Merry England's new owners, Pleasurama Limited, decided to close. Slide 9. Legacy. The Ramsgate Tunnels are now Ramsgate's central visitor attraction, taking 20,000 visitors through the tunnels each year. We also actively support external researchers and undertake our own research into both the history of the tunnel network alongside Ramsgate's wider wartime history. Slide 10. Further information.